You Only Live Twice was the final entry in the Sean Connery series, as it was intended to be, anyways. And it was intended to be the final one, but it wasn't. Um, but the reason for that we'll get into later. But basically, after this film, Sean Connery quit, and there was a new Bond, played by a British actor I'm forgetting the name of, and he was only in one Bond movie, and then it went back to Sean Connery, and we'll kind of talk about that more in the next couple of reviews. But I kind of want to get these main five talked about here. You Only Live Twice was kind of a refreshing release because this movie came out in 1967, and all these other Bond films had come out 4 years in a row, essentially. You were getting a Bond film, which is quite absurd to get that many Bond films. Like, you think, that's, I wish we got that many Bond films now. I mean, I think about how many Marvel movies we get now, but I think it would get pretty stale if they released that many Bond films. Because Bond films have a specific style to them. The Marvel movies, the difference is they tackle different genre and they can do different things. And Bond films are really, they gotta be that spy kind of type deal. They have to be very similar. They all have to have a song, they all have to have a specific intro. So I feel that'd be crazy if they released them like that. So, but what I really like about this movie is Blofeld. He is a very memorable character. And a lot of that has to do to the fact that Dr. Evil is a parody of Blofeld, but his scar on his face and him painting the cat is very memorable. And, Dr. Evil's obviously based on him. But in this movie, the actor who plays him, I'm forgetting his name, does a great performance as the character. And he keeps the character memorable enough. I think what's wrong with this movie is, first of all, because this movie was Sean Connery's final swan song, and it was a big epic movie, and there's a lot going on because it's wrapping up the series, it means that this movie has a lot of exposition, and it is not delivered well. It is actually delivered quite poorly, because in the movie it's literally like characters will stop and go, here's our exposition, and they'll just talk and talk and talk, and it's like, okay, I get the point, like, stop. And they just, it's very boring scenes, it's very poorly written. And the other part of this is Sean Connery didn't want to do this anymore. He feels very bored, his performance isn't very exciting, and it just doesn't feel like he wanted to be Bond anymore, and he didn't. I think Sean Connery was very known to sign on to things for money. He's that type of guy who, he does things just for money. And not to say that he's never gave great performances or enjoyed his work, but for the most part, Sean Connery relishes in the fact of money. And, that's why you'll see him in some not so great movies too, even though he's a very high caliber actor, And, this is, I think, one of the times where you can tell that he probably did this movie just for the money, and I think it's really hurt this movie. So, yeah, I mean, we're going to be talking about Her Majesty's Secret Service next, but that is all the Sean Connery films reviewed, at least in the main series overall. Of course, we have one more to go, and I will, my goal is by the end of this week, have all those movies reviewed. Don't know if that's going to work out, but I do want to review every Bond Sean Connery movie. So we'll talk about, we're doing all the Bond films in chronological order, but hoping to get done with all the Sean Connery ones and we can move on.